Hello, hello. Good evening or day or depending where you are. I'm starting this page soon-ish. There's still a couple of more minutes. And well, doing a black and white spread this time, or mainly a black and white. There's a hint of color because I just couldn't stop myself from adding just a teeny tiny bit, but this is something I'm recreating during this live. But still a couple of more minutes until I start. Oh, let me add the link to the announcement post to the chat. It's also in the description box, but now also in the chat. Should you want to check some of the mediums or see more photos of this ready spread. So this is what I'm doing, mainly in black and white, but also you could use color. I'm using India ink, so that creates this dark black here. But if you change it to watercolor, then you can just use any color you want. But it's kind of an idea of a monochrome page in a way, so there's not a huge amount of different colors, but more strictly just palette of white, black, and then the grays that happen to arrive there. Let me take a sip of my tea, and then I'm guessing afterwards we'll start. So yes, now it's 8 o'clock here in Finland, so let's get started. So welcome again, and let me move this sample aside and start with this piece of paper. There's something funny in my paper now. So what I usually do is to use a A4 sized sheet of cardstock and then cut it to smaller bits to fit inside my journal. I hardly ever work directly on my journal. But let's cut. Did I put? No, of course I didn't put the size to my notes. So then we just do this about there. Leftover piece. Yeah, about right. And then let's see. Yeah, I can see a little nick there, so I can then measure the first piece. Okay, where did the nick go? Come on. There it is. So it's 11.5, so easier then to get the other piece the same size, just this way. Yeah, that's good. And now I can move this aside for a while. Normally, when I'm building a spread, like you saw, I'm cutting two pieces, so there's the kind of gap already. And usually I put the tape on top because it's kind of a design element as the same, but this time I put it in the back. This is to combine the two pieces of paper, but so that there is nothing to be seen on the front. And this helps me to get the composition flowing from one page to the other because they are attached. What I could also do is cut this piece without this one, but now it's kind of easier for me to see where the gap is going to be, so I'm not putting a big element here in the middle and then need to cut it. Usually I'm just doing the background like this and then embellish the top layers later. So the papers, and then let's start with the mediums. I'm coating the whole paper using white gesso. Why I'm doing that is I'm sealing the paper because I'm working with India ink. So that would be absorbing into the paper immediately if I worked directly to the paper. So there wouldn't be any playtime as such. And this way, because I'm now sealing the surface, so I have a more of a playtime and it doesn't get absorbed into the paper directly. So just quickly brushing, just a teeny bit of water, so it's because this is heavy gesso, so I'm able to spread it a little bit more easily this way. There. I'm using a flat brush this time. I could use also brayer or even a palette knife for this, or do a gel print like just brayer, gesso, or acrylic, sorry, paint to the gel plate and then pull the print and thus seal it. I'm using white gesso, but you could also use like any kind of medium, like matte medium or such, to seal the paper. Oops, here we go. I could try it, but let's not waste time at this stage for that, because with the magic of cinema, I'm going to then go for another piece a little bit later. Then let's layer some papers on top. Let's see where they are. Here we go. So these are previously made. This is made with an embossing folder. Hi, Jill. And I just run it through the machine and then used an ink pad, Archival ink actually, on top to kind of highlight the different letters that were in there. And then this one, the other one, this is done using the India ink, but I've mixed it with not laundry detergent, but washing, kind of soapy, whatever that medium is, and made bubbles. So thus I got this a little bit kind of a marble effect to the paper. And these are, as you can see, black and white, kind of going with the black and white theme, color scheme. Couple one of those. Then I had, there it is. Just using double-sided tape to adhere these. And while I was babbling, luckily the gesso is also dried, so I'm not trying to attach the paper on top of wet medium. Okay. What you could also use is like the matte medium, for example, and then go over the whole surface, and thus also attaching these papers. But recently I've been using more and more double-sided tape in a way for the first layers. This is just haphazardly adding something, and now I added something there, so I'm thinking I'm adding this one here, and then these dimensional pieces as well. Just let me know if you have any questions. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat as well. You could use paper glue or like craft glue as well for this part. There. And as you can see, I don't think that much. I'm just placing the elements down and go from there. But that's just my way of doing things. Of course, if you want to ponder longer, think about the composition, then of course that's possible. But to me, this is the way I craft, just quick decisions, putting the elements down, and it's then onwards. Like so, and then let's add a hint of this decorative tape as well with the same color scheme, just black and white. Kind of heavily now going with this horizontal line. One more here. Okay. And then let's add the modeling paste. I'm using a palette knife for this one. And I'm creating quite a thick surface or a layer with this one, kind of spreading like cream cheese or something. Adding it here. And while it's still wet, I'm adding some texture to it by using this cardboard tube. So while the paste is still wet, I can just push this tube in it and create some texture. Why I'm doing this? Well, partly because it's fun looking, but also when I'm then adding the India ink, these little grooves pull it so they kind of heighten the texture. You could use also stencils or even stamps for this, but this is just a little tube, and you don't always have to have like these board materials. Then, by the magic of cinema in a way, let's move this aside and turn this, because if I would now use a heat tool to dry this layer, I would probably boil the modeling paste, and then it's not going to look like a smooth surface with the rings on it, but rather this crocodile skin type of bubbly thing. So I'm leaving this to air dry. I'm using that for another project and jumping to this one I previously made. So it has the same layers. There's the gesso, the modeling paste, and the papers. What is different is I'm also added some cotton tape. So this is cotton fabric with adhesive in the back. And then these leftovers from, I was making these little paper washers, and this was the leftover. And I really liked the kind of circle elements in that, so I added it here. And as it's then plain paper, a different thing from the background because background is gesso. So this one will then absorb the color while the background is kind of letting it pool on top. So there's going to be different colors emerging just by adding different surfaces. I'm going to add this one more piece here if I then can get it out of its packing. Okay, now. Here we go. I'm thinking adding it here. It's kind of repeating again the same pattern in a way, something I've been babbling previously, because there's the circular shapes in the bubbles, there's these circular shapes, there's even circles in the tape I'm using, and now these. So it's kind of repeating the same theme, but with different elements. And then India ink. I have this huge bottle, but this one lasts like forever. So it's available also in smaller sections. I'm using this little plastic cup for it because this is really sturdy stuff color-wise. So if I add some here, you can see it's pitch black. So, oops. One little dab of this stuff goes a long way. So I'm just using now water to dilute it and letting it pool. But just by adding the gesso underneath, I'm now able to pull it. And it's not a big black blob immediately, but rather I can just add these different hues of gray in a way to the project. And for example, there you can see the difference the paper makes, because this is gessoed, the circular one, and this is the paper now on top. So it turns totally black because it absorbs the color immediately. So this is a kind of a fun way to play with texture and color by adding some underneath a gesso layer or a medium layer that then seals the paper, and then adding some paper on top, because then you can get the best of both worlds in a way. Some places will absorb the color immediately and others won't, so it's kind of fun to play like that. And this way you can kind of, for example, here you can build a texture or pattern just by using absorbing and non-absorbing surfaces in the same thing. Again, no reason, just randomly adding. And this is something I've learned to use this year, a fan brush for the splashes, because I get these little teeny tiny splashes so easily with this one. So now I have this much ink left. I just poured a teeny tiny amount, but even less I would need for this one because it's so highly pigmented. So now I need to somehow wiggle this one back to the jar to be used. Now this one needs to dry for a while, so let me color the butterflies that come or might come on top. I cut 3 loose before, like echoing the sample where there's 3 butterflies. But when I get there, let's see if I only add 2 or 1 or all 3. These are all, sorry about the noise, cut out from a bigger sheet. This one is from A.B.Studio called Butterfly, and there's a huge selection of butterflies to choose from. With this one, I could also use a heat tool, and I probably need to use because the paper is looking so wet. But let's see if it might air dry. Because every time I use a heat tool to kind of watercolor surface, it changes the way it dries. So I prefer to let it air dry if possible. So let's add a little bit of color to these while we wait a second and see if that is enough time for that to dry. At least add as much that I can then continue. I'm adding just a hint of color to these using these brush tip markers. These are just water-based dye color in these. But I really like the brush tip. They are so easy to use for coloring. If you have like alcohol-based markers, they are of course very okay as well. I tried to choose butterflies that would have a lot of black and white, kind of echoing the color scheme of the background. But I'm adding some color there, just a hint. This one might look better with yellow, but let's add a teeny tiny touch of the teal here. Normally I don't use contrasting colors that much, but here I kind of wished for almost opposite colors, so yellowish or orange tone and then this teal color. So now they have a little touch of something in there. And let's make the antlers, or what are they called? This is just wire. I'm then using to make antennae, that's the word, to these butterflies. In the sheet they do have antennae, but I can't be bothered to cut them because they are so delicate. So probably I would end up cutting them loose anyway. So I thought to make my own and add a little visual detail by doing so. So I'm just cutting a piece of wire and then stapling it on top. It kind of creates also this harsh contrast between the delicate butterfly and the really rugged way of attaching the metal to the butterfly. And it's a, I can't say fun, but maybe interesting, hopefully, juxtaposition between the two. Same here. Like that. And then the third one. Hopefully I'll have enough staples this time because I said it before, I should check the staples before I go live. Did I do it this time either? No, I didn't. And they are out. So maybe I'm not using this one. Let's see. There's still some pooling here, so maybe I'll use the heat tool to dry it. So just a little bit. Not totally dry, but dry enough. So we can continue with some stamping. And the stamp color, black, of course, that's my go-to otherwise, but especially with this kind of a black and white theme. I previously said about the kind of round circular shapes that they are something that continues in this page, but there's also another element in the form of letters and numbers. So I'm using this stamp by PaperArtsy that has these numbers, and it's a big element, but I'm not putting it like totally in the smack middle, but instead using it as a little, well, I'm just saying I'm not putting it smack in the middle and then I'm putting it in the middle, but you can also use it in the edges, kind of just a hint of texture there, like so. And then something I like to add usually is this teeny tiny text, because it goes so well in a number of projects. Text usually is handy for that. I'm kind of going over the same areas with the text, kind of highlighting the same thing that, and masking maybe the little bit the bigger shape. Here we go. Then the background is almost done. Let's do one more step before cutting them loose, and that's adding a little bit of color to the background as well. I'm using the same markers, but in kind of a watercolor form to make some splashes to the background. So I'm coloring to my table and then picking up the color with a wet brush and adding that to the background. So it's kind of tying these colored butterflies then on top, tying everything together. Then the teal color as well. So even though it's black and white, it has these teeny tiny dots of color running from the foreground to the background, like in here. So there's the colored butterflies and then the splashes. So then hopefully I won't smudge the, let's do it this way, smudge the splashes that much. And also having the line previously done, it then helps me to cut the 2 pages loose, so I can mount them to opposite pages on my journal. Here we go. I'm just using double-sided tape for that. Like so. This one goes to this page, and then the other one. Then let's mount them there. It's beginning to be time to swap to a new journal, because I do love to make dimensional pages, and I do love my journal being as it is, like really bulky, but it begins to be quite a task to take photos of these, because the other page is then pointing upwards and the other one is laying flat. So I don't mind otherwise, but it just needs a little bit of wiggling when taking the photos. So because I make dimensional pages, a spiral bound journal is a lifeline for me. So here we go. Background pieces added to the journal. Let's see if I can make this a little bit flatter for you with that. Then I have the butterflies. I'm now seeing somehow this. In the sample, the bigger one was here, and then 2 others, but somehow now I'm drawn to add the little one here. And so it's kind of almost fading into the blackness there. Just a teeny tiny bit of yellow popping. I'm just using craft glue to adhere it to the page. Here we go. And then the bigger one on this side. Now please stay put. I'm not sure why I'm so obsessed, kind of following horizontals and verticals, but I hardly ever put anything like this. It's always this or then this. Like so. Now there's 2 butterflies there. And then it's just finishing touches. Let's add some paint markers there. Actually, now I have my camera on. Yeah, now. And then some word stickers. So just the teeny tiny touches. Let's use, I think I put the thicker Posca marker, but I'm now using the thinner one to add just a teeny tiny marks here, and then here as well. I could use black one as well. Just maybe here. Just some hand-drawn details, kind of making them more mine in a way. And then this one has both black and white stickers. So both would go, but as the background here, when I'm going to add the words, at least here is so dark, so I'm opting for white ones. But maybe even if I put something here like words, then that could be black. I should have thought this beforehand. Let's use imagine. And then what are we imagining? Imagine. Thought, through, very, want, no. Imagine, inspire, imagine, notes, imagined, brother, no. Imagine, smile, no, that's a little bit serious. Imagine possibility and it will happen. Well, let's go with imagine possibility, and then I might add the other words a little bit later. Imagine possibility. That could go. And then just some little ring stickers. These are actually the stickers I was making when this was the leftover. So it's kind of fun to have both in the same project. Both the product and the byproduct leftover. This is again kind of continuing that circular theme that's in the journal. Come in. Then let's put it there. And one more. Come on. The difficulty with this is getting the back peeled off. I should have like a needle or something sharp to remove it more easily. Right there. Oops. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm calling it done, at least for now. I might add a couple of words, but no use for me to ramble on and try to find the perfect ones here. But I often use these kinds of stickers to make little sayings or poems or stories. For example, here is always embrace imperfection. Sorry. So I could add something here. Imagine possibility occur or something. But let's see what I can then find from there. But I'll post the ready photos to my blog so you can then see what I opted for the whole thing. But that's my little black and white journal with little pops of color in the forms of the butterflies and some splashes. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new or got inspired. And I'm wishing you a very nice Saturday evening or day or morning, depending where you are. So thank you so much, and I'll be seeing you. Bye.